So tonight I want to talk about deadlifting and lower back pain because that's something that is a little controversial in the physical therapy world, not necessarily controversial in the fitness world, but can be a sticking point for some people when they're working out. So first I want to touch on deadlifting is really, really good for your low back. Deadlifting itself makes your low back stronger, and it's an exercise I use for people in rehab to get their back stronger. I used it when I worked at the hospital, and I still use it now too, even with people who aren't familiar with the movement, simply because it is so good for your low back. However, you can get low back pain from deadlifting if, and this is a big if. So deadlifting itself, when done with correct technique, should not cause back pain. When it does cause back pain is usually one of three things. So the first would be a chronic overload issue. So you're lifting too much too frequently. So say you deadlift Monday, you deadlift Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or you deadlift like 3 times in a week, and normally you're only used to deadlifting once a week. Something like that would be an acute overload response. So if you go from once a week to 3 times a week, that's an acute overload, and that can cause injury. Or if you're deadlifting a lot and you're just doing too much of it, that can cause injury as well. Another time that it can cause injury is if you simply try to lift more than you can. So this is an example of someone who regularly maybe deadlifts 150 pounds, and all of a sudden they decide they want to try 250. Now that wouldn't be the best idea, and that is something that could cause a strain or some low back discomfort. When done correctly, however, deadlifting shouldn't. So I want to go over a couple kind of key points that sometimes can get forgotten when you're in the middle of a high intensity workout, or just maybe you're just at the gym and it's just something that people aren't always aware of. So I have a PVC, and first I want to go over a hip hinge because the deadlift is essentially a hip hinge. So with the PVC, you can put it on your back. You're going to have 3 points where it should be in contact: your head, your mid-back or your thoracic spine, and your kind of like your sacrum or your lower back area. So with it in contact with those 3 points, bend your knees slightly and hinge forward, keeping it in contact and not letting it hit the wall in front of you. Like that. So it should stay in contact the entire time, your hip hinging forwards. That is the motion of the deadlift. It's not a rounded back motion. It's not a squatty motion. It comes directly from the hip, and this can be one of the difficult parts that people have with it. They start off really well, but then as they get further down, they round their spine and they lose that nice stabilized spine. They round their lower back, and that can cause some problems. Or sometimes they get down too low, they start to overarch and stick their butt way out. And this is something that I would recommend if you aren't sure if you're doing it or not, get someone to videotape you from the side. That's the best way to see what it is that you're doing. One of the other points that I often see in the gym is people aren't keeping their lats engaged. So your lats are your big muscles that go all the way up on your back. They actually come across through your armpit and attach on the front of your arm. So with your lats, you're pulling the bar into your body. So if you want to practice with the PVC, like say you start here, the PVC should be really, really close to you, and you should be pulling it back into you. Does it have to touch your legs the entire time? No. But yes, that is a good drill to kind of keep those lats engaged, because that's what you want. I'm going to take a quick peek at my notes. Okay. And then the one other point I wanted to talk about was to make sure you feel the load in your hamstrings. It is possible, if you have sufficient mobility, to deadlift with decent technique and not feel it in your hamstrings and feel it more in your low back. If that's the case, your deadlift may be too squatty. So this is more of a squatty deadlift. This is a hip hinge deadlift with more tension in the hamstrings. I feel my hamstrings here. I don't feel them here. So I can technically do a deadlift like this, but it looks more like a squat, and I'm feeling it more in my back and less in my hamstrings. If instead I go down in my starting position and I stick my butt up and back, kind of not very flattering for the person behind you, but if you stick it up and back, then you'll feel it in your hamstrings. You want to keep that the entire motion. So initially, your hips and your torso will rise together while you're feeling that in the hamstrings. Once that bar gets past your knee, that's when you start to stand up, and that's when your chest starts to move up. And if you do it correctly, you should feel it in the hamstrings the whole entire time. And like I said earlier, if you have any questions, if you're like, I'm not sure, am I doing this right? Am I doing it wrong? I don't feel it here, I feel it here. Take a video, or have either set up a little tripod and do it yourself, or have someone else take a video of you, because that can tell you a lot of information. Because in a lot of CrossFit gyms, there aren't mirrors, and it's really hard to know what you're doing unless you see it. So that's my tidbit tonight on deadlifts and low back pain. And if you have any questions about them, feel free to give me a message or comment below. Have a great night, everyone.